Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new, and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get right into today's video. Lately, I've been seeing cake nails everywhere on my Instagram feed, and I'm absolutely obsessed with how cute they look. So today, I'm finally gonna give them a try, and I figured I'd film the process so we can do it together. I've also treated myself to some new long almond nail tips from Aprés. This will be my first time trying them out, so stay tuned for a mini review while I do my nails. I'm going to start by removing my previous cat eye nails. I'll be using the 1 Kill remover that came with my Jello peel off extension kit. I'll apply a drop to the cuticle area of each nail as well as the underside and let it sit for about 2 to 3 minutes. Then I'll gently use a disposable cuticle pusher to lift and remove the gel extensions from my nails. This process should be painless and the extensions should come off really easily. If you're having trouble, just add another drop of the remover and let it soak for another 2 to 3 minutes before trying again. This is the inspiration picture I have for doing the cake nails. I found this on Instagram, and while I won't be copying it exactly, I'll be doing something very similar. The cherry details in this design is so adorable, and I love how neat the French tips look. I can't wait to try it out and see how it turns out. I'll have the original creators' details linked in the description box below so you guys can check out their page as well. Now let's get right into these nails. First things first, I'm trimming my nails down to a shorter length. I want to make sure my natural nails don't show underneath the gel extensions, and I find that keeping them shorter makes that process much easier when applying tips. Next, I'm filing my nails evenly using my glass hand file from the Crème shop. This file is super gentle on my natural nails, and I love it for smoothing everything out. I like to round out my nails to ensure that there's no harsh ridges and that everything is smooth. Now, I'm using my cuticle pusher to gently push back the cuticles. This helps increase retention and ensures they adhere well. After that, I'm grabbing the ball bit from my Macart drill set and I'm setting it to about 5,000 RPM to clean up around the cuticle area. I'm being extra careful here and just going around the nail plate to remove any of that white and sticky cuticle. Then I'm using this small needle bit that's also from Macart to gently go under the skin and lift it up, and it will also help get those harder to reach areas where the cuticle may be clinging onto. Finally, I'm going in with my cuticle nippers to trim away any loose skin or hangnails. This part is optional, but it just gives like a really polished and professional look to it, which I love, but you don't need to do this for good retention. Alright, now that my nails are all prepped and looking good, it's time to move on to the next steps. I'm grabbing my buffing block and using the coarser grit side to gently buff the surface of my nails. This step is super important because we want to make sure that the nail surface is fully etched and ready for adhesion. You could also do this step with a nail drill and use a 240 grit sanding band if you prefer, but since I do my nails so frequently, I find that using a buffing block is a little bit more gentle on my natural nails and gives me more control to not overfile. I'm going to buff until all the shine is completely off the nail surface to ensure that the gel extensions stick better. Buffing is key for good retention, so don't skip this step. Next, I'm going in with my Model 1's dehydrator and primer duo. First, we'll use the dehydrator. I'm applying it all over the nail plate, but making sure not to get any on the skin. The dehydrator will remove any oils or moisture from the nail plate, and you'll notice it evaporating as soon as it touches the nail, which means that it's doing its job properly. But once the dehydrator is dry, I'll then apply a thin layer of the primer to my natural nail plate. Again, be super careful not to get this on your skin. And we just want to get this on the nail plate itself. After applying the primer, you're going to want to let it dry down for at least 2 to 3 minutes. Now I'm going to apply a thin layer of the peel-off base coat. This step is optional, but I like to use it because it helps me pop off my nails more easily after a week of usage when I'm ready to remove them. If you're planning to keep your nails on for a long time, you can skip this step. I'm applying a thin layer of the peel-off base coat to each nail and curing it under my UV lamp for 60 seconds for a full cure. And that's all for prepping and priming the nails. Okay, this is the part I've been really excited about, trying out the Aprés almond sculpted tips for the first time. I've heard so much hype, so I can't wait to see how they work out for me. I decided to go with the almond shape because honestly, whenever I do gel X sets, I always find myself gravitating towards almond nails. It's just the shape that I wear most often, so I knew I'd get the most use out of these tips, and I decided to purchase the sculpted version of these tips because personally, I have a bit of a natural curve to my nails, and my nail beds are more suited for sculpted tips rather than natural flatter ones, so I'm hoping these fit well. A cool thing about sculpted tips is that they can also fit flatter nail beds as well. Now, as soon as I pulled these tips out of the box, I noticed right away that the Aprés tips have a higher apex than most nail tips I've tried, definitely more pronounced than the cheaper alternatives I've bought from Amazon or Shein. Another thing I really like is the thinner cuticle area on these tips. The thinner cuticle area makes them lay so flush against the natural nail, and I didn't need to pre-etch them with a hand file like I normally do to get the tips to sit more comfortably. I sized each tip to fit my natural nails, and I made sure it fit perfectly from sidewall to sidewall, which is very important. Now, when it comes to the glue, I know a lot of people swear by the Aprés Extend Gel, but honestly, that's a little bit out of my budget right now. So for today, I'm using my trusty Model 1's gel glue. I've been using it for a while and haven't noticed any issues, plus it's a lot cheaper than the Aprés version. I'll probably try the Aprés Extend Gel in the future when I order more tips, because I've heard it's top quality, so who knows, maybe I'll end up doing a full review down the line. I'm going to go ahead and apply the Model 1's glue on top of my peel-off base coat and cure them for a full 60 seconds. If you didn't use a peel-off base coat, you can still do this step. Just apply a thin layer and cure it. Now I'm using a 180 grit sanding band, and I'm going to lightly etch the inside of my nail tip to give the gel glue something to grip onto. I know Aprés sells a prep solution for chemically etching the tips, but etching them with a sanding band works just as well. Just focus on etching the area where the nail tip will meet your natural nail, and that should be enough. I got a bit of dust on my thumb, so I'm just wiping it off with some isopropyl alcohol. Next, I'm going to attach the nail tips to my natural nails. I'm spreading the nail glue onto the nail tip, and then I'm adding a bead of gel glue near the cuticle area. I'm using a generous amount of gel glue since I mentioned earlier these are sculpted soft gel tips, which require a lot more glue than normal nail tips because they have a larger gap to fill. I start at the cuticle area and press the nail tip down at a 45-degree angle, making sure that the gel glue covers the free edge. Once the gel has reached the free edge, I place the nail under the lamp to flash cure it in place for at least 15 seconds. I'll continue applying the tips to my nails one by one until all of them are on, and once all of them are on, I'll fully cure my nails in my big lamp for 90 seconds. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I do have a small gap near the free edge that wasn't fully filled. I'm going to quickly fill that in with some more gel glue using a small liner brush. If you run into this issue too, it's really important to fill in that gap. Otherwise, it could lead to lifting, moisture getting trapped underneath, or even bacteria growth, which is definitely something we want to avoid, so it's worth taking a few extra minutes to fill it in properly. I'm applying the gel underneath the extension, being very careful not to get it on my skin. I prefer to cure each nail separately as I go before moving on to the next, just to avoid the risk of getting any gel on my skin. This way the process is much smoother and more precise. I'm working at a speed of 6,000 RPM and using a small safety bit to lightly thin out the cuticle area. The Aprés nail tip was already pretty thin, but this is just a habit of mine, so I decided to do it anyway to ensure the best possible retention. Next, I'm taking some acetone on an oval brush and going around the cuticle area to seal in the gel extensions. I used the 180 grit side of my hand file to gently file the edges and smooth out the nail tips as there was a bit of plastic sticking out, so I just wanted to clear it up before applying any gel polishes. From the side, you can already see that built-in apex that I was talking about earlier. The nails itself also feels very sturdy, and they don't seem like they're gonna break, so I decided not to apply any builder gel at all. If you've been following my tutorials for a while, you probably know that I usually apply a layer of builder gel over my gel extensions before going in with the gel polish. But since these tips are already well constructed, I didn't feel that it was necessary. Overall, I can see the appeal of these nails, and I think they're definitely worth the price. For now, everything seems great, and I don't anticipate any breakage, and I'm hopeful that they'll last as expected. I'm going to start by etching the nail tips with my buffing block, using the gritty side to gently scratch the surface and remove all the shine. This step is super important because it helps the gel polish adhere better. Afterward, I'll wipe away the dust with some isopropyl alcohol. The first polish I'm using is Satin Luna from D&D. It's a beautiful sheer nude color. It's very delicate and pretty. I applied a thin layer of it onto all my nails, and after the first coat, I realized that I needed to paint 2 of my nails white, the middle and the ring finger. So I went in with a white gel polish from Madame Glam on those 2 nails. In between layers, I used a 7mm brush to carefully go along the cuticle line and the edges, just to fill in any narrow spaces near the cuticle to make everything look more neat and precise. Since I wanted the white nails to be as opaque as possible, I applied 2 coats of the white polish, curing in between each layer for 60 seconds. For the sheer nude I was using, which was Satin Luna, I ended up needing 3 coats to get the coverage I wanted, and I cured those in between layers as well. Once I was happy with the opacity of the base color, I moved on to the French tips. I placed some white gel polish on a palette and used a 20mm liner brush to paint the tips. To make the brush paint seamlessly, I evenly coated the bristles with the gel polish, distributing it all throughout the inside of the bristles. Then I painted a round French tip. You're going to want it to be a little bit higher up on the nail, not too deep. This is because we need room for gems and sculpting gel, which will create the icing-like design. So I made sure the French wasn't too low, so it could give me enough space for those embellishments. For the corners and tight areas, I used the liner brush to fill in any gaps. You don't have to stress about making the line perfect because the sculpting gel will cover any imperfections on that line. So even if your French tips look a little uneven or crooked, or they're just not lined right, it won't matter in the final result. I made sure to go in with a second layer of polish for full coverage, and don't forget to cure in between each layer before applying the next. I find that a 20mm liner brush is the easiest one to use for creating French tips and doing line work, especially with my shaky hands. Here's what my base is looking like before adding the details. I've got 3 French tips on each side and 2 fully white nails in the middle. I'm aiming to replicate each design on both hands so they match, but feel free to switch it up however you'd like. I'm going to be using this white sculpting gel from Born Pretty. I love it because it's a multi-use gel, great for designs like this, and also works great with dual forms for creating nail extensions. First, I'm putting on gloves because the gel is uncured. We don't want any of it touching our skin. I'm scooping out the sculpting gel and placing it on a glass dish. You can also use a disposable palette if you have that, but I don't have that, so I'm going to use my small glass dish to avoid using my table. Just make sure everything is sanitized afterwards and keep the gel away from your skin at all costs because uncured sculpting gel is just as dangerous as gel polish. Now that the gel is on the dish, I roll it out thin like a cinnamon roll and then cut it into small, even circles. I'm making them on the smaller side for a more compact look, but you can make them a little bit bigger if you prefer. It's all about personal preference. And once you've got a good amount, set them aside. Next, we'll prep the nails for chrome isolation. Alright, for chrome isolation, you're going to need a gel base coat. You can use any brand you have on hand, it doesn't matter. I'm using one from Madame Glam. You'll want to apply a thin layer to each nail and fully cure it for 60 seconds. After curing, grab some isopropyl alcohol or acetone on a lint-free wipe and wipe off that tacky inhibition layer completely. Once that's done, take your buffing block, use the softer, finer grit side to buff your nails generously. It'll take a bit of time, but the better you buff, the smoother and better your chrome isolation will be. Once you're done buffing, use a fresh, lint-free wipe with some alcohol to cleanse the nails of any dust. If you've done it right, the chrome powder shouldn't stick at all to your nail, but if it does stick, just buff it a little bit more and clean it again. Now it's time for the sculpting gel. I'm going to start by picking up one of the small beads of the white sculpting gel and place it at the side of my nail, right at the smile line. Sculpt a V shape that follows the smile line and curve it into the direction that it's going to continue. Tuck in both outer sides of the V to give it that ruffled icing-like shape, then flash cure it with your handheld lamp for 15 seconds just to hold its shape in place. After flash curing, apply your chrome powder over the gel and wipe off the excess. And now go on with your next piece. Take another bead of sculpting gel, shape it like the first one, and overlap it slightly with the previous piece to create that layered effect. Cure it again, apply the chrome, and dust off the excess. Repeat this process, layering and sculpting until the whole French tip is covered. And you're going to want to do this on each nail with a French. If you have smaller gel pieces, you'll get a more densely packed ruffle effect. But if you prefer a wider and more elongated look, just go for larger pieces. Consistency matters in this design, so if you're going to go for bigger pieces, go for those, or smaller, just try to make them all match up and you're good to go. You could also apply the chrome powder into the sculpting gel beforehand. It does work, but you have to be very careful not to add too much. When you mix the chrome powder into the gel, it makes the gel less tacky, and it's harder to keep the ruffles in place. So adding too much powder can result in the gel not being sticky at all and harder to work with. So my method is just to lay down the sculpting gel first, then apply the chrome, and keep layering it as I go. But if you want to mix the chrome powder into the sculpting gel, you can do that. Just be mindful of how much you add. A little can go a long way. This is why I mentioned earlier that your French doesn't need to look perfect, because the sculpting gel covers up any imperfections in your smile line. So you don't need to stress about it being super precise. It's pretty forgiving, and that's what makes it easygoing. Once all the ruffles are in place, give the whole design a 60-second full cure. I also wanted to take a minute to talk about these silicone molds you can buy to create these ruffles. They're very similar to the ones I'm hand sculpting. I had originally planned to use one of these molds, but when I went to order it, the delivery time was a month away, and I didn't want to wait that long to film this video, so I decided to hand sculpt them. However, the mold did arrive yesterday, a lot earlier than expected, so here's a little clip of what it looks like. The mold is a lot smaller than I was expecting, so they wouldn't have really worked on my long nails. I feel like these are more suitable for medium almond. I'm not exactly sure how to use them, but based on the tutorials I've watched, they do seem pretty easy to use. After completing each French tip, I took some sculpting gel and I went around the ring finger, applying it just like I would when icing a cake. My goal was to create a design that mimics the top of a cake with the cherry in the middle. I layered the gel all around the nail, making sure to get as close to the cuticle as possible and the edges without actually touching it. I repeated the same process as before to build up the design. Once that was done, I took the smallest rhinestones I could find, and it was these small silver ones, and I attached them to a piece of double-sided sticky tape on a little stand. I used about 3 rhinestones, then painted them with a jelly red polish. It didn't take much, just a little dab was enough, and I cured them in my lamp for 60 seconds to make sure they were fully set, and I removed them from the stand. Once I finished that, I grabbed my rhinestone glue from a cart and applied a small dot just above the middle of my French tip on each nail with the French design. Then I placed a little red jewel onto each nail and flash cured it in place for 15 seconds. I also have these very small pearls that I wanted to use, so I decided to place them in random areas on the French tip to add a little bit extra detail and fill in some gaps. I wanted a subtle bejeweled effect, not too flashy, but just enough to catch the eye. The pearls were perfect for this because they blended in so easily while still standing out slightly. It was nothing too over the top, which I really liked. I applied about 5 pearls to my thumb, and on the other nails I used 3, centering them around the red dot in the middle of each French tip. At this point, I was really tired and I needed a break, so I top coated my nails to protect everything, and I continued them the next day. When you're top coating everything, make sure you really get into the corners and edges of the ruffles because you don't want to lose any of that chrome powder, so just try to make sure that you seal it in well. The following day, I grabbed my red jelly polish, and I'm using a 7mm liner brush to paint 2 small red jelly hearts right in the center of the top of the cake nail. I made one heart slightly higher than the other, and then I cured it for 60 seconds. After that, I wiped my brush with a lint-free wipe to remove the jelly polish. Then I took a white cat eye gel polish, which comes with a cylindrical magnet, as you can see here. I used the polish to paint over the red hearts that I had already created, and then moved the magnet around in a specific way until I liked the look of the shift. After curing that for 60 seconds, I wiped off my brush again to remove the cat eye polish, then went back in with the red jelly polish, painting directly over the cat eye, and I cured that for 15 seconds. Using this very dark green polish from Madame Glam in the shade Foggy Night, it's a deep earthy green. I'm using the same 7mm brush to lightly paint the stem for my cherries. I'll try to keep a steady light hand while painting, and then giving it a flash cure for 15 seconds. Next, I'm going to go back in with my McCart rhinestone glue. I'll pick up a very small bead of glue and apply it all over the heart just to give it a little bit more of a 3D effect. This makes the cherries stand out a lot more, and I think it looks so adorable. After you finish one heart, you'll want to flash cure it for 15 seconds before moving on to the next, just to ensure that the heart keeps its form. I'm going to place a small ribbon bow charm in the center of my middle nail. I really wish I had a pearl bow charm, but this one will have to do. Then I decided to decorate the rest of my nail with tiny pearls around the bow to add some texture and give off a playful polka dot vibe. I pretty much placed them wherever I felt like. I wanted to keep this part simple since the ruffles were a bit time consuming, so I decided to do something really quick. Overall, I think it turned out really cute. Next, I'm applying a top coat to seal in my charms and the cherry design, and I just applied it in the interior of the nail since I already top coated the exterior yesterday. Then I'm going to go in with some cuticle oil to rehydrate my nails and the surrounding skin. This one is from Blossom. It's their rose cuticle oil. This is by far one of my favorite scents from them. If you love the smell of fresh roses, you're going to love this one because it smells exactly like that. And here are the finished nails. I absolutely love them. I think they're so cute and fun, and I'm really happy I used the Jello Jello peel off base coat underneath so I can keep these nails for a long time. It was a very time consuming set to create, but I do think they're beginner friendly. I love the cherry pattern, the icing ruffles, and the little embellishments with the red crystals. I think they're such a cute touch. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I encourage you to give this set a try. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next one.